Yes, with great joy, we dey happy say we get the opportunity to come your way again today. Will be Saturday. As you take note, health matter, health ṣe kókó, ṣe pàtàkì. That is, health dey very important. If you be regular follower for this show, you go know say last week now we finish everything we get to do with enteric fever, aka typhoid. And Dr. Dr. Bati taking time to dissect them, and we sef take our time to learn. Today we dey go to something new. Wetin we dey go to? Good morning, sir. How you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Pleased to be with you once more.
We are happy to have you here, Dr. Bati.
Doctor, good to have you.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning, viewers at home and around the world. My name is Dr. Bartholomew Tochukwu Febunam. I'm the medical director of Grace Valley Medical Center. Today we'll be looking at a very important health topic, as we always do in this program. I'm talking about measles. Measles infection. Now, measles is something that we all know, or we have heard about, or we have heard something about in our communities. Sometimes it's even the elderly ones that usually, elderly ones talking about mothers that usually make the diagnosis when they bring children to hospital, even with the presentation. So it's something we know a lot about. But today we are going to add to our knowledge. Okay, so if there's anything we are leaving behind that we have not learned, we are going to hear that today. In terms of vaccination, in terms of immunization, what we need to do so that we can keep the outbreak out of the shores of our land. Currently, I must point out that there's a global outbreak of measles infection. Even in the United States of America, where measles has been eliminated, that's the word.
Because we cannot eradicate.
No, you cannot eradicate. But they were able to eliminate measles in the year 2000. Okay? But currently, they're having what was regarded as a 25-year record-breaking level. Okay? The last time they had the highest level of measles cases in the United States was in the year 2014, when they had about 667 cases of measles. But as of May 17th, that's this month, about 8 days ago, it has gone up to 880 cases of measles in the United States of America, even with all their technologies and all the advancement in technology. And in Nigeria, of course, you don't need any prophet to tell you that we are worse off in terms of the number of cases that we have. At the moment, we have about 6,000 cases of measles reported just from beginning of this year to this moment. And the state that has been worst hit is Borno State. 3,600 cases have been reported. And so far, it has actually caused 15 deaths in Nigeria. So what can we do to stop this trend? About this time last year, what we had has doubled to what we had sometime last year. And the picture globally is equally the same. But as a way of introduction, what is measles? We need to know. Measles is a form of viral infection that is highly contagious. It's an acute viral infection that is highly contagious. Okay? Now, what do we mean by saying that measles is highly contagious? The virus that causes measles is called rubeola virus.
Rubeola.
Yes. Different from rubella virus. Okay? Now, when we talk about measles, we are looking at rubeola virus. Now, this rubeola virus usually occupy our throats, our nostrils, as well as our lungs. So anybody who is infected with measles can actually infect anybody around the person. It is airborne. When somebody with measles sneezes or coughs, you release the pathogens into the atmosphere. I can tell you that if we have somebody with measles in this room that sneezed and coughed and leaves this place, 2 hours after the person has left here, anybody that steps into this empty room can actually still pick up measles. It is that contagious. Now, it is highly contagious in people who are unvaccinated. In people who may not have been may not have had the disease in time past, it's been said that 90% of persons that come across people who are infected with measles that are not vaccinated are likely to pick the infection.
Okay.
Measles has an incubation period of about 7 to 14 days.
Okay.
Usually it occurs in stages. Now, the first phase of measles, usually the signs and symptoms of measles, at the initial stage, it shows no symptom. One may not even know that he or she has measles. Okay, but usually, after a space of 3 days, that one may have just flu-like symptoms. That could be fever, that could be malaria, that could be runny nose, and oftentimes watery red eyes. Okay, we see that plenty in children who have measles. Okay, now, this will last for 48 to 72 hours before the appearance of rash.
Okay.
Now, before the rash comes out too, there's also a presentation that oftentimes we say is pathognomonic of measles. And when we talk about this, we are talking about coplic spots. Coplic spots, usually found in the buccal mucosa within your mouth, okay, in front of the molar teeth. That is usually, now what is it all about? It's just a tiny spot, usually reddish. We'll have a picture showing on our screen, okay? Usually red, grain-like tiny spots that are scattered within the buccal cavity. Children who have measles may have this at early stage of the measles infection. And 3 days after, the rash will start coming out. Now, this rash is not like the rash that you can find in chickenpox or in any other disease. It is unique in that it commences from the hairline, starts from the face, moves over to the upper trunk, lower trunk, and then the extremities. And that could happen over a space of 5 to 7 days. Okay? Now, apart from these presentations, there are other late presentations that we also have with measles, okay, as well as complications. In some situations, you may see a child presenting with measles coming down with ear infections. It is usually said to be very common, in the sense that 1 out of every 10 children that have measles may have ear infection. Diarrhea is equally common. Okay, another complication that we could also see with measles that is usually responsible for most deaths that we see in measles-related deaths is pneumonia, because usually it affects the lungs. Okay. Apart from pneumonia, the person can also, when we talk about pneumonia, we are talking about infection that affects the lungs. Apart from pneumonia, such a person could also have encephalitis, swelling of the brain tissues, and this also can kill. It can cause blindness if it's not treated, and it can also cause hearing loss. Okay, so these are some of the presentations that we can see in measles.
Dr. Bad, before we go further, I think I have 21 questions. Like if you send to say, I have 21 questions. Let me start like this. When they talk measles, a lot of things they come from my brain. Measles, way me I know, it could come out for person body like this. Your daddy, it will come out for body. Now, what will be the difference between measles and chickenpox? Hey, now like this. Difference between measles and chickenpox and even smallpox.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's take it. Now, I will start by saying that measles, chickenpox, and smallpox are 3 different disease entities with 3 different causative organisms. Okay? They have you can see the picture we have on our screen. Okay? Now, for measles, we said at the beginning that it's caused by rubeola virus.
No rubella.
No, not rubella. No. Okay, and there's something similar like measles. Rubella is actually what we refer to as German measles. Different from measles again. I don't want it to get twisted. Okay, now this German measles presents in similar manner with measles, but usually in some cases we'll call it a 3-day measles. It is not as fatal as measles. Okay, but all the same, there's still a vaccine for both measles and rubella. But back to your question. Chickenpox is caused by varicella zoster virus. Okay, that is the causative organism that is responsible for chickenpox. Another difference is that in chickenpox, we have 2 pictures put side by side. Now, the pattern of eruption of the rash in in measles is usually characteristic in that it starts from the face, moves over to upper trunk, lower trunk, and then there's hands and legs and extremities. Okay, but you can see that in chicken pox, the rashes are more or less interspersed between each other.
Yeah.
Now,
And they are quite bigger.
Yes, they are quite bigger. They form sometimes they form blisters, and they're also itchy. Okay.
Oh, is measles not itchy?
Measles can be itchy, but the itching in that's usually found in chicken pox is usually much more pronounced. Okay, because usually when you itch, the blisters gets to burst, and then of course it spreads.
And they remain the spotty. They see my own measles when I.
And at the end of the day, people who have suffered chicken pox may have the telltale signs of chicken pox all through their lives.
Yes.
Okay, so these are some of the differences.
The spots doesn't get
the spots.
me though.
In some people, it gets to clear, but it's not in every, but it's not in everybody.
But what you call in English again? Telltale.
No, telltale signs. These are just things that you can see that can remind you that you once had this
chicken pox,
this problem some years ago. Now, talking about the resurgence of measles globally.
Before you go resurgence, I will ask everything where I know understand.
On,
but before we can't enter the deep. Another one where I want to ask again about measles, because we go so open for online now. That's why I want to ask about measles. If person get measles, more especially for our own side, so you understand, for all this our local this thing, they go say, Pepper say, make we no collect injection. If person collect injection, I don't know, maybe you don't hear that kind of thing before. Now so they go tell Yari, you gba abere koda o, pon ba gba abere, agbono di ni o. Saying the truth, say if person get measles, you understand you
understand.
Right. So saying the truth, say person supposed to collect injection for measles because most times they will come warn us for us say, you gba abere o.
More of cream.
Thank you very much for this very important question. I will tell you the truth. Now, this apathy against immunization, it's not just a Nigerian thing. Okay? Now, a few years ago, it was on a global scale. Okay? Now, the vaccine that was involved, not just all the vaccines were mentioned too, they said, but particularly they said MMR, which is the vaccine for measles, mumps, and rubeola, okay, that they have found an association that it can cause autism. Okay, but all of these claims have been debunked, okay, by a lot of experts and a lot of organizations. So it is not true. As a result of this apathy, it has brought about the increase that we are seeing today. Okay, the increase that we are seeing today in places where we have outbreak of measles. Take for instance, USA that was able to eliminate measles since the year 2000. They've not had anything up to the last time they had the highest they've had was in 2014 when they had 667 cases. But as we speak today, as at May 17th, they've had 880 cases. They're almost getting to 1,000. Yeah. Okay, so they have a 25-year history broken just because of this form of apathy. Okay, so but it's also in our environment. But our duty as experts is to tell people that these vaccines are not only effective, they are effective, they are safe. They cannot cause any infection. Wow. Now, I can tell you this as well, that Nigeria has the highest burden, is said to have the highest burden of measles, according to UNICEF. Nearly 4 million children in Nigeria missed their measles vaccine in year 2017. Nearly 4 million, I beg your pardon, 4 million Nigerian children were not able to get the first vaccine that they should have gotten. In our environment, we usually give measles vaccine. The first vaccine is usually given at 9 months of life alongside yellow fever. Okay. Now, we're still going to talk more about this vaccine. Now, but these children that were not able to get this vaccine, 4 million of them, they are all potential risk to other children around them, in the sense that if anybody has measles and comes in contact, just the way we are speaking here, if any of us has measles here and sneezes and coughs, if you have an unvaccinated person around us, the person has a 90% chance of picking the infection. Okay. So you can imagine where we have 4 million unvaccinated children coming in contact with infected
Doctor, so,
puppies in their schools.
Okay, sir. Let me just ask you, since we are still talking about vaccine. So are we saying once you don't get the vaccine as a child, it automatically saves you for a lifetime? Or if you get them as a child, you still got to take them for a particular age and all of that? Or once you have it once, you are safe from having measles?
Thank you very much for that. Yet another very important question. Now, I will answer by telling us a story. In the year 1989, in the year 1989 in the U.S., there was an outbreak. And this outbreak happened among school-aged children who had gotten vaccinated. They've gotten measles vaccination prior to having infection again with measles. Okay, so that changed the whole picture or spectrum of immunization. Don't forget, the vaccination that is currently used for measles started in the year 1963.
Yes.
Okay, so that changed the spectrum of vaccination in that necessitated a second dose of vaccination. So now the teaching is that having measles vaccine, doing measles vaccine 1 is not enough. A child will need to have a second dose given. Okay, but it's not all countries of the world that presently have. A lot of countries are still struggling to achieve close to 90 or 95% coverage with measles vaccine 1, not to talk of getting the second one. But ideally, if you get the first vaccine, you should get the second one, usually between, according to WHO, you should get it between the 4th and 5th year of life. So for those of us who have gotten, who have children who have benefited from measles vaccine at 9 months, it's usually given as a single vaccine. Okay, but currently too, we still have in Nigeria MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella. Okay, so children who have gotten vaccinated at the 9th month of life can equally get this vaccine by the time they are within the 4 to 6 years of age. That is the teaching from WHO. Okay, but what we currently have in Nigeria is that we are still struggling with measles vaccine 1. Okay, so that's the picture. Now, but anybody who has gotten vaccinated, the first and second, we have 97% immunity.
Which is almost 100. And
anybody too who has suffered and survived from measles is not likely to have measles in his or her lifetime again. So more or less, you have a lifelong immunity after suffering from measles. Unlike chickenpox, in which case if you suffered it as a child, rarely though, you may still have shingles in adult life. Thank you very much.
You don't answer that one. I say person get measles now. Say if he get time again. Because there's this popular, we wouldn't want to say fallacy now. It's no longer a fallacy. Since you have authenticated, say if person don't get before, tendency they say no go get again.
So I think it would be nice for us to open the phone lines at this stage so that viewers at home who have an opportunity to contribute.
As we enjoy the thing, now you don't get carried away asking me. But before we actually do that, we have to go on this short break. Health Matter shall be right back. Stay tuned. Go nowhere.
Health matter na serious matter o. That na why we dey always get Dr. Bat Ufegbunam every Saturday to come teach us and enlighten us on top with health matter. You fit also advertise your product and services on top with show wey dey help people. Terms and conditions apply sha o.
For advert placement and sponsorship, make una call Stella Maris on top 070 3914 5229. Rebecca 070 6969 1950.
Thank you and welcome back to the show. Okay, so we left off with epidemiology. Okay, so as it is from the beginning of this year to about this time, in the first quarter of this year, 170 countries have reported 112,163 measles cases to WHO, as against 163 countries that reported 28,124 cases last year. So more or less, the incidence has tripled this year.
And the surge has increased.
Yes, and what has been responsible? about 9 African countries are said to be affected at the moment, with Madagascar having more than 120,000 cases. Madagascar alone having more than 120,000 cases. And this was brought about because of loopholes that we have, the widening pockets of unvaccinated children and individuals we have in our environment, because there are potential risk to people around them. Because if one person gets infected with measles, I also would like to point out that this says that measles is a notifiable disease.
Notifiable in what sense?
Notifiable in the sense that if you pick out a child that has measles, you need to report to the authorities, to the health authorities. So that, number one, the child will need to be kept in isolation.
I want to ask, say it can lead to quarantine.
Yes. A disease that we have said that is as contagious as this, we painted a picture that is somebody who has measles, sneezes and coughs here, and leaves this room and goes home. If another person who may not know steps into this room within 2 hours of having of such a person having gone home, the person can actually get infected because it's still in the air. Someone who sneezes, who has measles, could sneeze or could talk. If he handles a door nearby, a doorknob, and another person touches it and probably touch his or her eyes, the person can get infected. Okay, so it's a disease that usually, when you identify a child that has it, you need to keep that child in isolation. Such a child should be treated in isolation. You don't allow the child to have contact. If it's a child that is still in school, it must be kept at home. Okay, but not at home really, because depending on the presentation, I also would like to point out that 1/4 of all children that have measles usually will end up getting admitted in hospital, getting hospitalized. Okay, but in some cases, the symptoms may not be as severe as it used to be. Okay, largely because of the vaccination, immunization campaign that we have in our environment. And I also like to point out that it is not everybody that can have this vaccine. There are some contraindications to having measles vaccine.
We have Augusta. Augusta, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing, ma?
Fine.
Dr. Bat is here.
Okay, yes, this is the doctor. Thank you so much for your program.
Thank you very much,
a lot of information this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, so my question now is, if a child that has not been vaccinated comes in contact with another child that has the measles, what are we going to do about it? Because I have a daughter now that is 4 months old, and she's about to start the crèche. And God forbid now, she now gets in contact with somebody that has the disease. So what are we going to do about it?
Thank you for that very intelligent question. Shortly before we started the program, I had a similar question. Somebody was trying to, a loving father was trying to ask, because he has a 6-month-old child. Whom by what we have stated, that the vaccination usually should start by the 9th month of life. Okay, but not, I'm talking about measles alone. Okay, but when we are talking about MMR, it can't be given at 9 months. It must be beyond 12 months. It must be after 1 year of age. Okay, now, to answer her question, it's a dilemma, really. All you can do is to protect that child as much as possible. In terms of where you can take the child to and all whatnot, you need to protect the child, because the vaccine cannot be given earlier than 9 months of age. Okay, so it behoves on the responsibility is to the parents to ensure that the child is not unduly exposed. Okay, but how can you do that? Because at that age, the child might be in school. Okay, might be in crèche. Okay, so it's a difficult thing really to do. Okay, but at the moment, there is no vaccine that anybody less than 9 months of age can have for measles. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I can say along that line. Now, I was talking about contraindications to measles vaccine, that in some situations, one may be unable to take vaccine. Okay, so that's what we mean by contraindication. Now, if you have an illness that has compromised one's immunity, or your immunity, like leukemia or HIV/AIDS, you can actually not take this vaccine, because it's a life attenuated vaccine, meaning that it can cause serious reaction in someone who has compromised immunity. Yusuf from Kogi, good morning.
How are you there, Yusuf?
Yeah, good morning.
Dr. Bat is here.
Yeah.
Please go on. You
Go
get
on.
contributions or questions.
Okay, it's a question.
Yeah, go ahead,
on.
sir.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. You were asked to expatiate the difference. Hello?
Yes.
You were asked to explain the differences between measles, chickenpox,
and
and smallpox. So,
Go ahead, sir.
so you have told us the differences. You have explained chickenpox and smallpox. And
Measles.
What of chicken and smallpox? I want to know.
Thank you.
What is smallpox? What is explain smallpox?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Now, smallpox, I don't want to use the word eradicated. Okay, there could still be some pockets, but it is not as common as measles and chickenpox. Okay, now, for years ago, there used to be major outbreaks with smallpox and everything, but not anymore. But like I pointed out when he asked the question, I said that there are 3 different disease entities, and they are caused by, yes, they are all viral infections, but they are different causative organisms for each and every one of them. The presentation may be similar in the sense that they have something to do with rash.
Yes.
Okay, but there's between each and every one of them, there are still some distinctive
Entomological
like you say.
differences.
characteristics I can actually differentiate them.
Okay.
For instance, people who have measles, I said at the beginning that people who have measles might have Koplik spots, usually in their buccal cavity.
Yes.
They open their mouth, you
Show
can
us
see.
pictures.
And I also said that particular characteristic is pathognomonic of
Pathognomonic, that's the English.
of measles, meaning that it can only be found in measles. So anybody who has rashes that spread from the head down the trunk and then to the extremities and has such within the buccal or within the mouth, you should be thinking about measles. Okay, and I also would like to point out that the infective stage of measles is between 4 days before the appearance of the rash and 4 days after the appearance of the rash. Okay. And usually when we pick the infection, when one picks this infection, picks measles, you may not even know until it begins to manifest. Talking about the incubation period.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll move on now. Now, the other things I need to point out is that, okay, I think before the question came in, I was talking about people who should not be immunized.
Yes,
okay.
HIV.
Yes, I said children who are below 9 months of age or have.
Mrs. Osebu.
Mrs. Osebu. Good morning, Mrs. Osebu. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I want to ask the doctor a question.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Doc, good morning, sir.
Good morning, madam.
Please, I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
The first one is, I want to ask a child that is not up to a year that has measles, can that child be given an injection?
Thank you very much. The second one, so that I won't interrupt you.
Okay. The second question for me is when a child has taken the measles, has already gotten the measles before 9 months, would that child still take immunization for the first dose of measles immunization, please? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start from the first one. Now, it's a notion in this environment, and we can't shy away from the fact that we know that these things exist.
Yeah.
Sometimes when children are brought to the hospital, the parents, once they suspect the child has measles, they will tell you, doctor, do not venture to give this child an injection. We believe that if a child with measles is given an injection, the child will die. In fact, needle shouldn't touch the child if the child has measles. Madam, I want to tell you that that practice is in error. Is in error. Meaning that it is not true that any child who has measles cannot be given injection. The child can be treated and treated very well and nothing will happen. Now, measles is caused by a virus. Just like every other viral infection, it can be treated. Okay? And a lot of people who have had measles have been treated and they survive.
Yeah.
It's only in people who are unvaccinated that is usually very severe. Or a child who has been poorly nourished or malnourished, it's usually severe in them as well. Okay? But in a healthy child who may not have gotten to 9 months of age, even if such a child picks measles, the severity is not going to be the severity will not be much more pronounced, okay, will not be pronounced as you could have in some other situations. Meaning that what I'm trying to explain is that if a child that is below 9 months of age ends up picking measles, once that child is well nourished and healthy, the effects are going to be withered, watered down. It's not going to be as severe in a malnourished child. Okay. Now, the last question: a child who has gotten measles vaccine, should the child still go for the second one? Yes.
Okay.
Now, it became necessary because of the fact that even in the US, school-age children who were immunized with MMR were eventually discovered to have measles again. So they have to make it, that necessitated the second immunization. And globally, that is what WHO recommends, that children who have been immunized with M1, measles 1, should also have M2, usually in form of, in combination with measles, mumps, and rubella, which should be given between the 4th and 5th age of life, 4 to 5 years. Okay, but I also want to say that there are other combinations apart from the MMR. There are other combinations that's MMRV, the one that also combines with chickenpox, but I'm not sure if they're available in Nigeria. The only one I know that is available in Nigeria is measles vaccine, coming as a single dose, and MMR. We have it in Nigeria. In terms of cost, I was expecting you to ask because you usually do. For measles vaccine, is free in most government hospitals, if not all government hospitals. You don't pay anything to have it. Wow. Measles vaccine.
The vaccine or not the treatment.
Yes. Now, I also the MMR is a special vaccine. It's not under the routine vaccines that we usually have in our environment. Now, I came with this card.
Sorry, we have Mrs.
Iraubu
from Rivers. Good morning, ma.
Good morning.
How are you doing, ma?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello,
Good morning, ma.
Good morning.
Hello, yes.
We can hear you.
I want to speak with the doctor.
Please go ahead.
He's with you.
All right, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma.
Thank you very much for the enlightenment you are giving to us.
Thank you, ma.
All right. I want to ask a question. I know the question has been partially treated, sir.
Okay.
There's this my son. I vaccinated him 9 months. I vaccinated all my children. But he had measles. Now again, you see, I heard that there was an outbreak of measles now. So we have another one. Though this one is not severe like the former one. Though I have treated him. Even my daughter, I vaccinated at 9 months. I never knew there was another vaccination after the 9 months. So, but they have measles. 2 of them have the measles now. So that is, I want to know the reason why the other one have it 2 times.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you very much, ma.
All right.
Yeah. Very important questions, I must say. Now, the reason why someone who has suffered measles should have it a second time, okay? Meanwhile, we have said that measles can only be suffered once.
Yes.
That usually when you suffer it once, you're not likely to get it because your body system must have kept a record. Okay, I don't want to go into the processes and all that, the details. So that anytime it comes up, there's already an immunity developed in your body that can actually ward it off and you won't get infection the second time. I want to say this. Some of the times, there are possibilities of wrong diagnosis. Sometimes, when we say my child has suffered measles, you probably didn't take that child to the hospital.
Just because you see spores and everything.
Yes, 1,001 illness could come in that presentation. So oftentimes, we confuse ourselves by thinking that our children have suffered measles in time past, when in reality they may not have suffered it. Okay.
Can somebody suffer German measles and still suffer the real measles?
Yes, I think it's possible because there are two different disease entities. But like we said at the beginning, the German measles, the so-called rubella, usually is not as fatal as measles. Okay, and
so
within 3 days it usually resolves.
Maybe at times parents could actually misdiagnose German measles for the real measles. So where a child has the two now, they will believe it is measles reoccurring again.
Sometimes even chicken pox. When someone had chicken pox, so long as the person probably didn't get to the hospital where the diagnosis was made, the person could take it to mean anything. So what I'm trying to say to answer her question is that there may be a possibility of wrong diagnosis.
Okay.
But that said, there's nothing like never say never in medicine.
Yes.
So it could happen. I'm not betting my life that it cannot happen because they have said it's going to be so. Okay, anything is possible in medicine. But what I can say is that possibility of wrong diagnosis should also be considered because, like I said, it's not everybody that has measles that end up getting to the hospital. Okay, it's not everybody that has measles that end up getting to the hospital. Now, I intentionally brought this immunization card. It's for a purpose.
Okay,
now, this card is from National Primary Healthcare Development Agency Child Health Card. This is immunization card. Every mother, yes, I don't know if you can focus on it.
Yeah, maybe I think you should, yes.
Yeah, better.
Okay, so every mother should ensure that all our children in the house have this immunization card. It's important. A lot of us only think it is important when we want to travel abroad or when we want to travel from one point to the other. It is very important. Now, on this card, it will guide you. If your child has had any of the immunization, it's going to be marked under the column for that with date. Okay, so you have the ones that are given at birth, you have the ones that are given at 6 weeks, you have the ones that are given at 10 weeks, and you have the ones that are given at 14 weeks, and then you have the one for 6 months, and you have the one for 9 months. For measles, you have measles at 9 months, and you also have yellow fever at the 9th month. Now, beyond 12 months, you could also have M2. Usually, in accordance with the World Health Organization recommendation, it should be between the 4th and 5th. It should be between age 4 and 5 for children who has had the first one. But what we are saying is that we should ensure, in 2017 alone, about 4 million Nigerian children missed out on M1 measles vaccine, just that 9-month one that everybody ought to have. So we shouldn't have this. Every child should be immunized anywhere in Nigeria. If we're able to achieve this, we'll be able to decrease the outbreaks of measles that we're having currently. The recommendation, the target should be to achieve 90 to 95% immunization coverage. Across universal coverage across Nigeria. Okay, but at the moment we are not. I think we should be in the neighborhood of 87% or thereabout, and it has stalled over the past decade. We have remained permanently along that line because of people's apathy, apathy towards vaccines. So know it today that all the vaccines that are being distributed, there is no trick. Nobody is deceiving anybody. Nobody is trying to hide anything from anybody. The vaccines are safe. They cannot harm our children. So if you've been preventing your child from going for immunization, know it today that you're exposing such a child to dangers, to risk. What that child what needs to happen is for that child to get to school and somebody comes down with measles, of course the person will be the first person to pick it up. Because in 90% of cases, if you're not vaccinated, you're likely to pick it up. Only 10% may escape it. Okay, so it is a disease that is highly contagious and yet it is vaccine preventable.
Because our hormones, there's individual differences in hormones, which is, like medically they say, some people hormone, they're very strong, past some people. Does it play any role?
No, you mean to say immunity?
Immunity, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Immunity, does it play any major role in how successful one could be in picking up?
Correct. 100% correct. Now, I did say that children who are malnourished or poorly nourished, okay, there are actually some risk factors, okay, to having measles infection, okay, one of which is malnourishment or children who are poorly nourished. So if one is healthy, if you have a child that is healthy, it stands to reason that such a child will have a much stronger immunity than another child who may be malnourished. Maybe a child suffering from kwashiorkor, which we don't see very common these days. Okay. Now, the other risk factors that can actually happen is pregnant women. If they have measles, it can cause premature delivery. It can cause miscarriages, and it can cause even fetal death in some situations. Okay. So, but pregnant women cannot be immunized while pregnant for measles. Okay. Now, the MMR that we talked about is not just for measles. The M there is for measles. The second M is for mumps, and then the R is for German measles. So it's actually a 3-in-1 vaccination. Okay, so that one can have. Okay, so very quickly, I want to talk about diagnosis. Okay. We have John from Bauchi.
John from Bauchi. Good morning, John.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah, quickly, I want to ask, is it possible for a person to contract the measles and the person's natural antibodies, combat the disease and kills it? Must the person always look for additional drugs or medication? Is it something that, we can prevent with good diet and proper living?
Thank you very much, Mr. John. Your question is just spot on. Yes, it's not everybody that picks up measles infection that will actually come down with the disease. We said that at the beginning. And we also said that 1 out of 4 people that picks the infection may actually require hospitalization. Now, that said, measles is a viral infection. It's usually self-limiting. Most viral infections are self-limiting. What that means is that with or without therapy, some of them can resolve, okay, on their own. A good example is catarrh that we usually have from time to time, coryza.
So is it possible to continue again?
Okay, we have to just pick up from there next week. Thank you very much, our esteemed viewers. Say Health Matta every Saturday, so feel free to join us next week. I will continue on top measles matter. Thank you very much, Dr. Bat.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Doctor. Of course, I'll get to you guys again 1 to 2 on top 5.
So we say bye-bye. Yeah, thank you very much. So we'll see you next week.